Good afternoon and welcome everybody to today's webinar. Thank you for attending today's webinar on how to kickstart your RTO CRICOS business. Please note that I have you on mute and everyone will be on mute throughout the webinar. But if you have any questions, please place them into the chat box and I'll answer the questions as I go through the whole session today. I love getting questions, so please ask away any questions that you may have. But to begin with, what I will explain is how the webinar has been set out. So generally, we get a lot of questions that are the same type of questions about registering as an RTO. So what we've done is we've compiled this webinar to include the typical questions that we receive about setting up an RTO or CRICOS organisation. So what you'll find throughout the webinar is we're going to answer those key questions that we tend to get asked on a regular basis about registering as an RTO or CRICOS provider. And we'll also be looking at the pros and cons of buying a training organisation compared to setting up your own initial registration application. So we have a range of questions we'll be answering, and of course I'll be answering your questions as we progress through the webinar as well. So please ask away. Okay, so a little bit about me. So my name is Angela Connell. I am the CEO and Director of Vivacity RTO Coaching Consulting. I commenced in the training industry in 2003 and have extensive experience as a trainer assessor delivering Cert 2 to Diploma in Business, as well as experience as a compliance auditor. I've also owned and operated 2 of my own RTOs, which ranged in qualification areas and in locations as well. So my 2 RTOs were based in Newcastle and Gosford. On my first RTO that I commenced, we had 35 qualifications on the scope, over 40 trainers and assessors and 8 administration staff by the time I sold the RTO. We had a lot of experience in aged care, disability, community services, hairdressing, beauty, tourism, event management, business, legal studies. We had a whole range of qualifications that we delivered and assessed within that organisation. Prior to getting into the training industry, I had written a range of policies and procedures and documentation for WHS compliance, as well as industrial relations requirements and things like that. Since then, I've been in the training industry since 2009, so that's when we commenced Vivacity Coaching and Consulting. So we're actually celebrating our 9th year this year. During that time, we've worked with a range of clients from all over Australia, where we've attended over 300 audits and 200 ASCO audits, where we've assisted our clients through the ASCO audit process. We work in both RTO and the CRICOS sector, and we also have a range of support services to assist our clients with managing their ongoing compliance. So that's a bit about me. I'm also a compliance auditor, so I've attended many audits around Australia. I have also got extensive experience in delivering training in RTO and CRICOS compliance as well. Anyway, so that's about me. So you're thinking about setting up as an RTO or CRICOS provider. So this is a bit of a snapshot on registered training organisations. So to be an RTO, you can deliver nationally recognised training around Australia. So it means that you can deliver accredited courses that are recognised not only in Australia but also overseas in a range of qualifications, and these are listed on training.gov.au. It means you can also issue certificates that are recognised. You will have the ability to apply for government funding and traineeships following 12 months of registration, and you can also meet industry requirements. So there's a number of reasons why someone might decide that they would like to set up as an RTO. And they could include that you're currently delivering non-accredited training and now you're thinking about delivering accredited training that is nationally recognised. It might be that you currently work under partnership with another training organisation, and now you've decided that you want to go out on your own and deliver training and assessment under your own scope of registration. You can also be a CRICOS provider if you are delivering, if you wish to deliver nationally recognised qualifications to overseas students. So these are from an Australian qualification framework qualification that you wish to deliver to students who are in Australia on a student visa. So they come to Australia on a student visa wishing to complete a qualification. The provider is responsible for reporting student attendance and academic monitoring to the Department of Human Affairs or Border Protection. With an RTO registration, you can also offer nationally recognised training qualifications. Additionally, you may want to have an ELICOS registration, which means that you can deliver English language courses. We have a range of clients who may just be ELICOS providers, so they get their CRICOS registration and then as well as ELICOS registration where they're delivering English language courses, or it might be that they're a CRICOS provider with an RTO registration so they can deliver nationally recognised training, or it could be all three, that they're RTO, CRICOS and ELICOS registration. So who is the regulatory body for this industry? The regulatory body is ASQA, the Australian Skills Quality Authority. That has strict requirements for submitting your application to the government. ASQA are responsible for auditing your organisation prior to gaining registration. And what they are there to determine is your capacity and suitability to own and operate a registered training organisation or to become a CRICOS provider. An authorised auditor from ASQA is responsible for auditing your organisation, and there's a range of ways that they do this. There's been some major changes to the ASQA requirements for initial registration that came into force on the 1st of July 2018. We'll be going through a range of those changes and how that will impact on your application to become an RTO or CRICOS provider today, in today's session. To find out more about ASQA, you can go to www.asqa.gov.au. So as I stated earlier, ASQA is increasing scrutiny on new applications for registration from 1 July 2018. If you'd like to know more about ASQA's changes, we've got a web link there that you can check out about these changes. But essentially, ASQA's scrutiny is focused on your ability, your capacity, basically, they're looking at to own and operate a training organisation. So a lot of the changes that have come into place, there are changes in the submission requirements. So these are the documents that you submit to ASQA as part of your application process. You also are required to undertake a self-assessment for registration, and that self-assessment can be completed by a consultant. ASQA have recognised that a lot of applicants who are applying for registration are working with consultants, and they are quite happy for you to be working with a consultant. But one of the concerns that they have is, are you getting ongoing support to support your registration following initial registration? So we've already adjusted a lot of our packages, and this was over the last couple of years, identifying what the needs of our clients are. And we include a lot of training. We have monthly webinars, we have live workshops that are included, and ongoing support to support our clients for throughout their registration process and managing their ongoing compliance. One of the other new requirements is each director within the organisation is required to complete a fit and proper person form. So on that fit and proper person form, you are to declare your suitability as an owner-operator of an RTO or CRICOS organisation. So in it, you're placing your information onto this form, and what's included on that form is any previous experience that you've had with working within an RTO, and in particular, whether you've worked in a senior executive management position within an RTO or CRICOS organisation. Now, the major change that's come in with regards to fit and proper person forms is you've now got to declare whether you have any family members, that could be mother, brother, father, sister, aunt, uncle, cousins, or de facto relationships who have also been involved with RTO or CRICOS organisations. So some of the issues that have occurred in the past is there's been some unscrupulous operators where they've opened up an RTO or CRICOS organisation. They've then opened up secondary and third RTOs or CRICOS organisations just in case something goes wrong with the first one. And what they do is just shut down and start again with a new organisation. So what ASQA are trying to do is to identify who are these people who are opening and closing and opening RTOs and CRICOS organisations and are trying to circumvent the regulatory requirements that are enforced by ASQA. It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have any family members who may own or operate an RTO or CRICOS organisation. It just means that they're now going to link your organisations together to identify, well, if there's any unscrupulous operations happening within one organisation, they're also going to have a look at any subsequent organisations that are attached to directors within that RTO or CRICOS organisation. So there's a lot more requirements around fit and proper person forms, and one of the major things that ASQA are trying to resolve is the issues that they've had with those unscrupulous operators. So it's not a problem if you do have family members or other connections who have owned or operated an RTO or CRICOS organisation. It's just declaring it and being clear and transparent upfront with regards to who's been involved with these organisations. There's also been changes to the financial viability requirements. So there is now a much more extensive process for conducting financial viability, and these include completion of a projected profit and loss, a projected balance sheet. It's also looking at strategic business planning and what are your goals that you're set for your organisation, and looking at how you own and operate the organisation into the future. And essentially what they're looking at with the financial viability requirements is your capacity to be able to operate an RTO or CRICOS organisation, and that includes financially your capacity, but also resources, organisation and team, and what your strategies are moving forward with your organisation. So that's the main changes around the financial viability. It's not just a projection now. They want to actually see evidence of your capacity to be able to own and operate a training organisation. There's also increased scrutiny on multiple owners. So there has been a range of consultants out there who set up registered training organisations or CRICOS providers with the intent to sell those organisations. ASQA are increasing scrutiny over those operations because a lot of those people who are setting up the training organisations with the intent to sell is that they're not actually training the new owners on how to operate that training organisation. So there's been a lot of issues where people have bought an RTO or CRICOS organisation and they have no idea what they're doing when they're operating that training organisation because they weren't actually trained on how to be compliant. So one of the big things that happen when you undergo initial registration of a training organisation is it's a big learning process. So you'll learn a lot about compliance requirements. You'll learn a lot about how to own and operate your training organisation, which is very much what we do with our process, with our KickStart package when we're looking after our clients. It's very much a focus on how are we teaching you to implement your policies and procedures within your organisation. So ASQA's focus, as I stated earlier, is your genuine intent or capacity to provide quality education. Back in May, I issued a Vivacity update about the new process for initial registration. You're most welcome to check out that Vivacity update on our website. So there's the link to our website if you want to find out more, as where I covered the key changes. ASQA held a live webinar with the new changes, about the new changes back in May, and my Vivacity update was based on that live webinar and what we learnt about the new initial registration process. There's actually been, now that we've had a few clients come through since the new change, and we've actually commenced auditing. We've actually now identified a few other things that I'm now covering off in today's webinar. Next, I'm going to show you a video that comes from ASQA, and this video is about the new changes that they've brought in. And we'll see if I can get the video to play. Nope, it doesn't want to play. We'll see if we can get it to play. And it doesn't want to play. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll send a link to that video so you can find out more about what these new changes are that have been brought in by ASQA. Oh, there we go. Just changed my pointer.
Vocational Education and Training, or VET, and the education of overseas students make a significant contribution to Australia's economy. More than 4 million people undertake VET in Australia each year. The Australian Skills Quality Authority, ASQA, is the national regulator for VET. Our aim as a regulator is to see registered training providers delivering high-quality training and assessment, so that all VET students can get the training experiences they want and deserve. That is why, from the 1st of July 2018, applications to establish new training providers will come under even greater scrutiny. Under ASQA's updated processes for new applicants, if you are applying to become a registered provider, you will need to show you are ready to commence delivery at the time you apply. This means showing ASQA that you have all the necessary processes and resources in place to provide quality training and assessment. You will need to provide a self-assessment and evidence of compliance with the required standards right at the beginning of the process. ASQA will look at your business plan and financial forecasts, so you will need to have accurately determined the costs of operating a quality training organisation. We will ask you to prove that you have sufficient funds to commence operations and remain financially viable. You will also need to demonstrate that all people involved in running your organisation and their associates are
This
suitable.
would go into your business
You will
plan.
need to show that these people are of good character and do not have a history that prevents them from being
It's also in
involved
your
with
fit
an
and proper personal
RTO.
requirements.
Once you have submitted everything, what happens next? ASQA undertakes a comprehensive series of checks to make sure that your organisation is reliable,
And this
financially
includes a
prepared,
combination
and
of a
ready to
desk
start
audit,
delivering
and
high-quality
now they're doing
training
phone
and
audits and
assessment.
Skype audits.
These checks happen in several stages, and ASQA may reject an application at any stage in this process. If the evidence doesn't show that you are fully prepared to deliver quality training, that all the people connected to your training provider are suitable, and that you're financially capable of delivering what you're planning to, ASQA will reject your application. And if you do successfully meet the requirements and are granted registration, ASQA will continue looking closely at your organisation during the first 2 years of registration.
And this
As
can
of the
include
1st of
coming
July
to site
2018,
audits
if you're a
at
new
your
provider, you
organisation.
will generally be registered for a 2-year period only. If you apply to deliver additional courses during that period, in most cases, these applications will face additional scrutiny from ASQA. You will only be re-registered after 2 years if you can demonstrate that your organisation has been providing high-quality training and assessment. The strict requirements that ASQA applies to entering the RTO market protect students and also protect all RTOs in the Australian sector. These requirements make sure that only quality providers can offer this valuable service. Raising the bar for entry to Australia's VET sector helps students, quality training providers, and the reputation of Australia's valuable vocational and international education and training markets.
Okay, that's the end of that one. So that's a video that ASQA have actually provided explaining what the process is for initial registrations now. So I thought this was an important video for you to see, so if you haven't seen it yet, about the new process. And it just explains to you what their regulatory requirements is. So the process for applying for registration with ASQA has, as I stated, changed quite a bit. The process is quite extensive, what you're required to do. So as for determining your capacity to deliver quality training, so they're really looking at the documentation that you have in place, the trainers and assessors that you have in place, the facilities to ensure that you are able to deliver the training as per the training package requirements, that you have a training and assessment strategy that includes the strategies on how you're going to deliver that training and assessment with a whole delivery and assessment plan on the process of how you're going to deliver that training. And if you're delivering single units, they're also looking at your session plans for those individual units that you'll be delivering as well. You need to ensure that you are ready to commence training straight away and that you have all of the resources in place at the time of submitting your application to ASPA. So in the past, it was a requirement that we submitted your application. So that's what happened with your registration with ASPA. And then it was normally about a month before your audit, you would submit further documents. That's now changed. You now need to submit all of your documentation at submission stage. One of the main reasons why ASPA have changed this is because more often than not, ASPA auditors would turn up even on the day of the audit, and then a lot of the documentation wasn't ready. There was also issues where people were required to submit their pre-audit documents. They'd already submitted their application, and then they're submitting their pre-audit documents, and then it was came a big realisation by ASPA that there was a lot of operators who had applied for registration who did not have sufficient documentation following the submission to ASPA. So they really want to check now that you do have all of the documentation in place prior to your submission to ASPA. Once you've submitted all of that documentation to ASPA, you are not allowed to make any changes to that submission. So this includes the location, so your training room that you'll be delivering the training in. That includes room hire agreements or lease agreements that you have in place. You won't be able to change any of your trainers and assessors from whatever we've submitted, and then you cannot change any of the training products. So they're the main things that you cannot change, but there's a few, once you've submitted your documents, you don't have an opportunity to resubmit more documents. If you are non-compliant, if they determine that you are non-compliant, you will have an opportunity to submit a reconsideration application where they reconsider your application and you're able to provide further evidence. But it is more important now that you get everything submitted and everything is correct before you submit your application to ASPA. So applying for initial registration. Part of the process is you've got to demonstrate your financial viability, so projected profit and loss, and it's a strategic business plan that they want to cite when you submit your application. You've also got to complete a self-assessment of your capacity to become a registered provider, and this includes providing evidence that you have training and assessment tools in place for each unit of competency, for each qualification that you wish to have placed onto your scope of registration. That means you have to have every single unit, you have to have an assessment tool in place for every single unit. So it's not you purchase more assessment tools later, you've got to have everything in place at the time of submission. You've got to have a suitably qualified trainer or assessor that has a minimum of 3 years of experience within the training industry in the sector that they're delivering. So it's not as a trainer assessor, it's in their vocational sector. So if, for example, if you're hiring a business trainer, they need to have a minimum of 3 years of experience in business, and depending on the level of the qualification, so if you're looking at a diploma level, it should be a minimum of 3 years industry experience at a management level. So there's different ranges of experience that they have expectations of for your trainers and assessors. You need to demonstrate that you have sufficient facilities and equipment to meet your forecasted student numbers. So whatever you forecasted for the next 2 to 3 years, you need to identify, well, what resources will I need to have in place? When will I have them in place by? It might be by a student ratio number, or it might be by how many new locations that you have. So you need to actually forecast that in your strategic business plan. You need to have an understanding of the compliance requirements and how you will demonstrate your ongoing compliance, how you will manage that on an ongoing basis. For RTO registration, you need to comply with the Vocational Education and Training Quality Framework, which includes the standards for RTOs, the Australian Qualifications Framework, fit and proper person requirements, financial viability risk assessments, and data provisioning legislation. For CRICOS registration, it's the Education Services for Overseas Students Act, ESOS Act, and associated legislation from the ESOS framework. This is the legal framework for the provision of education services to overseas students and sets out the registration requirements and the ongoing standards for education providers that offer courses to overseas students. So there's a range of regulations underneath the ESOS Act, regulations and the registration charges. And then you have the National Code of Practice for providers of education and training to overseas students. The ASPA forms that need to be submitted upon application include your fit and proper person form. You'll also need to submit your CEO stat deck, your financial viability risk assessment kit, and your completed self-assessment tool. As part of our initial registration process for under the KickStart package, we assist you with all of these. We also complete the self-assessment as part of our mock audit process of preparing you for audit. Financial viability, we include, we have an accountant who has experience within the RTO CRICOS industry who works with our clients for the completion of financial viability. CEO stat deck is a standard form that where you're declaring that you are a fit and proper person to own and operate a training organisation. And then, as I stated earlier, the fit and proper person requirements. Saw a typo. Documentation to be submitted with the application also includes your training and assessment strategy. So this is your plan on how you will deliver and assess your training. You need to have in place every unit that you are placing onto your scope of registration, training and assessment tools. You also need to have a staff matrix completed for each trainer or assessor that demonstrates their skills and knowledge is sufficient against the training product requirements. You also need to submit your marketing material, which includes your course flyers that include the relevant information for the training products you wish to add onto your scope of registration. There are additional requirements for CRICOS, and this includes 9B building approval from the council that your building meets the requirements for fit for education purposes. You'll also need to have in place a building floor plan, which lays out where all your training rooms are and your offices, and there is a certain square metre that you'll need to allocate per student for a range of different courses. You'll need to have a CRICOS timetable of all the training products that you wish to deliver with the trainers and assessors mapped out into your timetable with how many sessions that you wish to offer as well. You'll need to have in place the International Student Policies and Procedures Manual, also an International Student Prospectus, which provides an outline of all the training that you'll offer with the location and facilities, and what student support services you'll be offering to support the students whilst they're a student within your organisation. So what is involved with registration? Based on questions we have received regarding registration, this is some of the questions that we get asked about it. Should I become an RTO or expand into CRICOS? Well, this will depend on your current circumstances. So where are you right now? Are you in business? Do you currently operate a business where you're operating under partnership with another training organisation? That's an excellent opportunity and reason why you should set up as your own entity, because what you'll find is when you work under partnership with another organisation, there are extensive fees that you need to pay to that partner organisation for them to maintain the compliance requirements. It might be that you currently own and operate a consultation business where you're consulting to an industry and now you want to offer training and assessment for that industry. Another excellent reason for setting up as a training organisation. It might be that you have an organisation where it has a range of other services within that organisation and now you want to provide training services in addition to the services that you currently offer. Or it might be that you're an enterprise where you want to deliver training and assessment to your own staff and employees. So it'll be mainly internal training, and you want to take advantage of the funding requirements that you are able to get access to as an employer as well as a training organisation. We often got asked, do you need to have a training background in order to set up as an RTO or CRICOS organisation? No, you don't have to have any experience within the training industry. However, you will need to have in place trainers and assessors who hold all of the relevant qualifications that you wish to deliver and assess. They hold the Certificate for in Training in Assessment, which is currently TAE 40116. And they need to have a minimum of 3 years industry experience within the industry that they wish to deliver their training and assessment. Are you currently delivering non-accredited training or an RTO? So you might be an RTO now, and now you're looking at going into extending your market into CRICOS, so international students. That's another opportunity that you may want to take advantage of. When considering whether to set up as an RTO, you really need to consider your industry and what are the requirements of your industry. Do they require nationally recognised qualifications? So often we get asked this for people who might be delivering non-accredited training right now, and now they've decided that they want to deliver accredited training in a nationally recognised qualification in their area, and they the non-accredited training that they were delivering in the past is no longer suitable for the industry sector that they're delivering to. An example I can give you with regards to someone who may have been delivering non-accredited and now delivering accredited. We had a client who came to us who were delivering non-accredited training in project management, and that project management was an RPO process where they'd recognise students, people currently working in the sector and provide them with a qualification, but it was a non-accredited qualification and it wasn't recognised around Australia. It was only recognised by certain industries or companies. Their main client that they were delivering this training to had a change, and one of the major changes was under the ISO requirements, so the international standards within their organisation. It now required that all of their staff who completed any qualifications needed to have a nationally recognised qualification. So they were delivering non-accredited training in project management and then decided to offer a diploma of project management to meet their industry needs. So that's an example of, it might be that you are meeting a need of your industry that you've decided to now set up as a registered training organisation. It may be that you currently have access to an international market and you might be looking at adding CRICOS to your RTO registration, or it could be that you are looking at doing both your RTO and your CRICOS registration at the same time because you've identified a market overseas where you could get access to students to bring into Australia. Another example that we can have of that is we've had clients who have come to us who are education or migration agents who have decided that they've identified that there's a big market in international students, so the CRICOS market, so they've decided to set up as an RTO CRICOS organisation so that they can benefit from the education agent side as well as going into international education. So that might be another reason why. We often get asked, should we set up as an RTO first and then go into CRICOS if that's something that we're considering? This would really be determined by where are your current market and where can you get your students now. So if you believe that you could get the majority of your market from the domestic market right now, I would start with an RTO and then add CRICOS registration at a later date. If you know that you can get access to international students now, you would be better off going straight for CRICOS registration. So do your RTO registration with CRICOS at the same time. Another factor that needs to be considered is there is a risk if you are an RTO currently and then you decide to add CRICOS registration following having an RTO for a number of years, is when you apply for CRICOS registration, it is considered an initial registration, so you will undergo the same scrutiny as any other initial registration application. The ramifications of this is it could affect your RTO registration. So if you apply for CRICOS and you are rejected, there is a possibility, and there has been cases this year, where there was an organisation that applied for CRICOS registration, had been running an RTO for over 10 years, and they actually lost both. They lost the RTO registration and did not gain their CRICOS registration. So it is a risk to your organisation. One of our recommendations to anybody who's looking at setting up as a CRICOS provider and has an existing RTO is that you set up a new entity with your RTO and CRICOS registration so that your RTO registration is not affected. So I would go with a whole new entity. So you keep your RTO, set up a brand new entity that is RTO and CRICOS registration together. And that's to manage your risk to your existing RTO. A question we get asked a lot is whether I should buy a training organisation or set up my own. So the big thing about buying, and the way I like to describe it, is when you buy an RTO, it's like buying an existing house compared to building your own new house. With buying a house, you don't know what happened during the construction phase of that house being built. You don't know whether there's termites in the building. It can be hard to determine whether there's termites in the building. You cannot determine what happened to the structure of the building, whether there's been any water damage to the building or things like that. Whereas when you build a house, you know everything that happens with that building. So the reason why I like to use this analogy compared to buying and setting up your own RTO is when you buy, you don't know what skeletons are in the closet. You don't know what issues are lurking behind the documentation or the trainers and assessors or what that RTO did in the past. Because when you buy an RTO, you also buy all of the risks of that RTO that you are purchasing. So if they've had any non-compliances, you become responsible as the new owner of that RTO of those non-compliances. If they've had any government funding that they've claimed that they shouldn't have claimed and now you need to refund back to the government, you are the one that's responsible, not the previous owners of that registered training organisation. So there are a lot of risks when you set up as your own, buy your own RTO, because you never know what was happening in the past and you buy all of those risks when you purchase that RTO. Just because you've purchased an RTO doesn't mean that you will avoid an audit. There is extra scrutiny on people who have purchased RTOs. And the reason why is they want to identify, are you a suitable owner, operator of a training organisation? So as soon as you have notified ASPA of a change of CEO and change of directors within that organisation, which has to be done, must be done within 90 calendar days of that change happening, you are under extra scrutiny where ASPA will trigger you for a site audit. As soon as you go to add an addition to scope to your scope, they will be out to do an audit of your organisation, but it will also be triggered within the next 2 years. You don't know when that's going to be, but you will be triggered that you will end up going to a site audit. It is a very good option if there is goodwill, and I mean a lot of goodwill. So if there's a lot of money sitting in there that you're purchasing that training organisation, then it is a very good option. But you really need to undertake your due diligence of that organisation to identify what are the risks that you're taking on board when you buy this RTO or CRICOS organisation. Because if they are non-compliant or if they have broken any legal factors, you will be responsible as the new owner, operator of that training organisation. And as I stated earlier, if you wanted to add a new qualification to your scope of registration, you'll also be under extra scrutiny, whereby it will trigger a site audit for those additional qualifications that are added to your scope of registration. So if you're setting up your own RTO, it can take a bit longer, although I have seen some cases where people have bought RTOs and it's taken over a year for that sale to actually happen. So it may or may not take longer. But there is a lower risk as there are no non-compliances, because you know what's happened within that organisation. You know there's no termites. You know there's no non-compliances or issues with government funding, because you've set up this RTO as a fresh new organisation. You will be required to do a lot more work up front to get set up, but it will give you a much better understanding of how to own and operate a training organisation into the future. It is a very big learning component when you set up your own, because you will learn a lot more about what is required for the registration to maintain your compliance requirements of your registration on an ongoing basis. You will need to know what you are doing or hire an expert who has extensive experience within the training industry and has a really good understanding of the compliance requirements of the legislation that you are required to comply with. So you need to ensure that you've got the right team on the side when you are setting up as your own RTO. As I stated earlier, one of the issues that ASQA have found are people who have sold RTOs or CRICOS organisations and they haven't sufficiently trained or given mentor to the person who has purchased the organisation. So they really do not understand what they're doing, and they get to their first audit and they're majorly non-compliant because they really don't understand what the compliance requirements are. So it is a big risk when you're buying an organisation, particularly if you don't have any background in the training industry. With setting up your own organisation, you get to choose what qualifications you wish to add to your scope of registration. You do it as part of your initial registration process. So there won't be adding any qualifications at a later date. You would have already done that as part of your process for initial registration. So when any client comes to us with our KickStart package and commencing as setting up as an RTO or CRICOS provider, we recommend that you begin with the end in mind. You may already have a company set up, or you may want to set up a new entity. So you need to determine whether you should have a new entity or should you associate it with your current company. Now, the risks involved with setting it up under your current company is if you go to sell that company on a later date, your RTO or CRICOS registration will be associated with the shares of that organisation. And when you go to sell it, you have to sell the whole lot together, because you can't sell an RTO registration as a separate entity from anything else within the organisation. So when you go to set up, if you want to set up under the current entity of another company, you need to identify, well, if I was to sell this down the track, would I want to sell the whole lot together, or would I want to sell them as separate entities? So that's something you need to take into consideration. An example of when you would join them together would be you're currently working under partnership with another RTO. You have your own identity already. You've got that set up. You're currently delivering non-accredited training, or you're delivering under partnership with another RTO. You get RTO registration. It's all the same. What you're delivering is the training. You're still delivering the same, but now you've got your own registration and it's under the same entity. Where you may not want to have the two entities together is you might have a consulting organisation and you want to set up the RTO to support that consulting organisation, but maybe down the track you want to sell that consulting organisation. So if you do go to sell it and it is associated with the RTO, you'll need to sell the two together. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. RTOs can be registered under a range of structures. So you've got proprietary limited, sole trader, trust, public or privately listed. But from our experience, we highly recommend that you set up as a proprietary limited, because that's the easiest way to sell your RTO at a later date is as a proprietary limited, because you can sell it as a sale of shares. So an ideal company structure that we recommend is if you currently have any other companies in place at the moment, so it might be another proprietary limited company or other companies, and now you want to set up as your RTO, I'd set it up under a trust arrangement, so you have all your other organisations under the trust. But the way I would set it up is that you have you can set up the RTO as a separate entity. You don't need to have the trust straight away. You can set up the RTO entity first, add a trust, and then put all the companies under the trust at a later date. The reason why you might want to run it under a trust is because you only need one ABN then, and it streamlines your tax purposes. But you really need to go to your accountant or your solicitor to get the best advice on how you structure your company moving forward. So who should you have in your organisation? We've helped many clients who are me, myself and I RTOs. So what I mean by that is the CEO is also the sole director, is also the trainer assessor, is also the marketing person, is also the finance person. Basically, they do everything. Now, as an RTO, you can do that, but moving forward, your business strategy should be to engage more employees to grow your business, because you are not going to be able to grow your business with a single entity. It is quite a process that you need to have in place with registering your training organisation, but following that is operating the training organisation. You will need more people or more hands on deck. It can be quite less expensive if you are everybody and you are the trainer assessor as well as the CEO for initial registration. But following registration, we recommend that you hire other staff members moving forward, and that as a trainer assessor, we get this a lot where people want to be the trainer assessor as well as run the organisation. But one of the problems that happens then is when you are the trainer assessor and then doing everything is that one part of the business is going to fail. Generally, when you're delivering training in the training room, you're not able to recruit new clients or new students. So it makes it more difficult for you to grow your business. You don't need to have a team to set up an RTO, but we do highly recommend that you have experts with a range of experience to help you through the whole process. Someone who has extensive experience with the compliance requirements and an understanding of the audit requirements, more so than ever before, because there are it's much more scrutiny that ASPA are now applying for initial registration. And you really need to have an understanding of what the process is for your registration process, but also your ongoing compliance requirements. With CRICOS, you cannot have a me, myself and I CRICOS organisation, and the main reason why is you need to have those support services in place to support your students whilst they are with you within that training environment. So you'll have to have a student support officer. If you're adding ELICOS to your scope of registration, you'll need to have an academic manager, and these are to meet the requirements of the capacity of the student that you wish to apply for. You'll need to have trainers and assessors in place, so someone to go through the assessment tools with the auditor who has a good understanding of the course, but you'll need to have trainers and assessors who hold a minimum of 3 years of experience within the level of the qualification that they are delivering, and also have their Cert 4 in training and assessment. How long does it take for registration? So according to ASQA, it's taking anywhere between 12 to 18 months for an initial registration. Our process for an RTO is to submit within 3 to 4 months, and then ASQA can take an additional 3 to 4 months. We don't know how this is going to change with the new requirements that are coming in, because they are streamlining the process now, whereby we've got to submit all of the documents as part of your initial registration process, and they will be conducting a desk audit before coming out and doing a site audit. They're also not doing as big a site audit. They're just doing, we just had a client who advised us today that they're not actually going to site audit, they're going to have a phone audit. So there'll be a desk audit where they submitted all of their documentation, and then they're going to have a phone audit where they'll get verification of the remaining documents through a phone audit. Our process for CRICOS registration is to submit within 4 to 5 months, and this will be dependent on all the resources that you have in place. The biggest barrier with CRICOS registration is getting that 9B approval for your building, so you need to ensure that you have that. Doesn't mean that we cannot commence your application without the 9B approval, but it's a really good idea if you on top of making sure that you have the building in place and that it is approved for training purposes. And ASQA can take 4 to 6 months to get you to audit. But once again, we don't know how long this process is going to be under the new requirements that they brought in on the 1st of July. The time frame to submit will be dependent on your current workload and your other commitments. So how much work do you currently have in place? When we have clients work with us on the KickStart package, we need a minimum of 10 hours per week dedicated to the project of your initial registration. If you were to do this on your own, you're basically working full-time to gain your registration and what the process is for all the documentation. Do I need to be an expert? You will need to have a good understanding of your organisation and the training industry before going to audit. or you need to have someone on your team who is an expert. So it will be very difficult, and in particular with the new requirements that have come in, to go to audit by yourself when you don't have an understanding of the training industry or the industry within that you wish to deliver training and assessment. So you will need to have, with all of our clients, we need our clients to have expertise in their area, and as we are experts in our area, which is the compliance requirements for RTO and CRICOS registration. You will need to have policies, procedures and documentation that support the government requirements, even better if they've been through a number of audits before. We recommend that you hire qualified and experienced trainers who have a minimum of 3 years industry experience. Your CEO and directors do not need to have any experience within the training industry, but if you are applying for CRICOS, you will need to provide evidence that your principal executive officer has a minimum of 5 years work experience within Australia. So that's a CRICOS requirement, is to have a PEO. With RTOs, it's a CEO that you need to have in place. Now, they can be one and the same. So you can have a CEO and a PEO that are the same person. So that's not a problem. But with CRICOS registration, this PEO must have a minimum of 5 years work experience in Australia. Here is an example of some estimated startup costs, because this is often what we get asked, is how much is it going to cost for my initial registration. So some of the fees that you need to consider: for your ASQA fees for RTO, it's $8,800. For CRICOS, it's $9,900. For your registration and setup, you're going to need, for an RTO, $30,000 to $40,000, for CRICOS $45,000 to $55,000. But this would be dependent on how many qualifications you wish to add to your scope of registration, whether you're getting assistance from a consultant to assist you, whether you need to take time off work. So there's a range of things that you need to consider when you apply for an initial registration. You also need to ensure that you have training and assessment tools, which can range from $1,000 for a unit, maybe 20. It can even start from $25. But for a qualification, you're looking at between $1,000 to $15,000 per qualification on your scope of registration. CRICOS is the same. You'll need to have a database in place that meets the VETMIS requirements, and or you may be looking at online platforms for the delivery of your training. So this can be anywhere between $1,500 to $20,000, and this will be dependent on what is your range and what do you wish to offer as part of your scope of registration. What's your capacity going to be? What other facilities do you want your online platforms to have included? You'll need to have training rooms in place, or perhaps a building, and this will be rent, or your mortgage repayments can range between $4,000 to $35,000 per month, but this will be dependent on your location and what you're hiring, what your resource needs are. You'll need to take into consideration your staffing for RTO and CRICOS. It's going to be a bit more for CRICOS registration because you will need to get an academic manager, which is a bit more expensive to be able to put that into place. But it can range between $700 to $4,000 per week, and $1,000 to $10,000 for CRICOS. So for an RTO registration, we recommend a minimum of $75,000 is what you're going to need to set up as your RTO. And for CRICOS, you're going to need a minimum of $100,000. So you need to take into consideration whether you have these funds in place. And these funds will demonstrate your capacity to ASQA under your financial viability requirements on whether you are a suitable provider who has the capacity, and that includes the funds, to be able to operate this business in the next 2 years. So where others fail. So what we have found in the past with a lot of people who have come to us following, they've submitted their own application to ASQA. They've identified that they had a lot of non-compliances, or they failed the registration process, and then they've asked us to assist them through the registration process. So this is what we've found have been the non-compliances and where they have failed. So a lot of the time is limited to no understanding of what to expect at audit, or what are the requirements that ASQA require you to have. So what documentation need to be submitted. There are insufficient training and assessment strategies that do not demonstrate that you have the capacity to be able to deliver the training and assessment. This includes all of the resources. How have you developed the training to meet industry needs? Insufficient delivery and assessment plans that do not demonstrate their capacity to be able to deliver the training. Trainers and assessors do not have sufficient skills, knowledge, or qualifications in order to be able to deliver the training. And assessment tools do not meet the training product requirements. You do not have the capacity to deliver what they included in their financial viability and business plan. The policies and procedures do not demonstrate how they will meet their compliance requirements. And there are insufficient supporting documents to support the process that you have put into your policies and procedures. The other one is training facilities do not meet the training product requirements. So there are a lot of risks with setting up as an organisation without any expertise, and these include loss of money, i.e. purchasing the wrong resources or hiring the wrong consultant. It may be that you're missing crucial documentation at audit, you're not being properly prepared for audit, it's been wasting time. Some people take over 3 years to submit their registration. And there can be stress financially and emotionally on the owners of the business. Getting overwhelmed with the requirements for ASQA, and following registration, you end up with a sanction on your business that is imposed on your business, which limits your operations. What if you are non-compliant? So ASQA provides an ASQA audit report following the audit. But ASQA no longer has a rectification or reconsideration process. You must get it right the first time. You will be able to submit a reconsideration following your submission, but there will be a fee for this reconsideration process. So it's $1,000 to submit a reconsideration of your position. If it's a minor risk, you will have until your re-registration to fix and provide evidence at your 2-year audit. If it's a critical risk, your application will be rejected and you will be given the opportunity to apply again. Okay, so that is the basis of initial registration. That's the main questions that we get asked on a regular basis. I haven't had any questions today, so if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat box now and I'll answer those questions for you now. But please stay online because I will be now going through the KickStart package and how we can assist you as an experienced consulting firm with your initial registration application. So introducing the KickStart package. What do we do that is different? So we coach, not only consult. We coach you on how to be compliant and how to run your business successfully within the compliance requirements, but also looking at your business as a business. So we'll be looking, the basis of our organisation is to teach you how to run a successful business from monthly webinars to face-to-face training. We have over 3 years of experience in the training industry with this extensive experience in writing policies, procedures and supporting documentation based on our own RTO CRICOS experience. We have a systematic approach to setting up your RTO CRICOS business and managing your ongoing compliance. So when we're working with our compliance clients, we provide you with training and expert support, weekly calls from our client liaison officer who will look after you throughout the whole process of your initial registration. We provide monthly webinars on how to implement the policies and procedures and documentation into your organisation and how to maintain your ongoing compliance. We prepare you for your ASQA audit with a focus on managing your risks of the new business. We have an online system for you to access all your branded documents. About our team. Our team has over 30 years of experience in the training industry and attended over 200 ASQA audits around Australia. We are experienced auditors in both RTO and CRICOS compliance and have been writing policies and procedures for the training industry for over 20 years. We have extensive experience as trainers and assessors, and we hold RTO and CRICOS experience. Our team are trained by experienced auditors as well. Our package requires you to have no experience. What you'll get within the package is a systematic approach to gaining registration, a user guide on how to run an RTO CRICOS business. This is through the policies and procedures. You'll be working with an industry recognized leader on your side. You'll gain expertise in the industry to get you through the whole process much quicker. We can get you started straight away, so there's no need to wait. We set realistic goals. We will be honest about the process, and we will not lie to you just to get you as a client. Get started with our dream team. With experienced experts on your side who are connected with the industry, we will guide you through the whole process. You will be fully supported with training, with systems and practices that have been through many ASQA audits before. We have hands-on experience with ASQA audits as well as running training organisations. So you will get a whole team on your side, not just one consultant. You'll get a team of us to assist you throughout the whole process. We are not building you a business for now. We are building you an investment for the future. You have really big goals, and it could take you up to 3 years to get there. You may even be close, but you just need the right team on your side to get you there. So what is the KickStart package? As I stated earlier, you'll get a dedicated client liaison officer who will assist you throughout the whole process. So basically, they're your project manager throughout the process. They assist you with preparing the required documentation, answer your compliance questions, assist with financial viability documents. They'll deal with ASQA on your behalf. They'll complete your online application with ASQA and provide you the support during the entire process to keep you on track. They'll also liaise with our team to answer all of your questions. So you don't just get one person that you're working with. You get a team who have a lot of experience in a range of areas. So this is our KickStart package. So what we do is when we commence with you, we commence with your business planning stage and financial viability. So we assist you through the process of writing a business plan and completing your financial viability documents. Depending on the level of our client will depend on how much support you will need, and we have a range of KickStart packages to meet those individual needs. We assist you by writing the draft of your training and assessment strategy, identifying how you wish to deliver and assess your training and assessment, and we'll make adjustments to the training and assessment strategy in line with what your requirements will be. But we'll also, when we write the training and assessment strategies, we'll write it in line with the training package requirements for the training product that you wish to place on your scope of registration. We also work with a certified practicing accountant to sign off on your financial viability risk assessment. So this is your projected profit and loss and forecast. So one of the things that we do here is, depending on the level of experience you have and what additional services you require, will be dependent on whether you need to spend more time with us or with our accountant for your financial viability risk assessment. We'll also assist you with your ASQA.net submission. So we'll submit your ASQA.net application to ASQA. We'll also conduct a self-assessment and mock audit with your organisation, and you'll also get us attending your site audit for your ASQA audit, but more importantly, we'll be there for your self-assessment and mock audit. As part of the KickStart package, we include membership for 12 months, and this membership comes at 3 different levels. So we have Gold, Ruby, and Diamond. So Gold includes all of the policies, procedures, and documentation, monthly webinars, live webinars, 2 to 3 live workshops, depending on what registration you are wishing to gain. So if you are doing CRICOS alone, it's just 1 workshop. If you are doing RTO, it's 2 workshops. If you're doing RTO plus CRICOS, you'll be able to get access to all 3 workshops, live workshops. So we do an RTO compliance, CRICOS compliance, and assess and validation workshop. You also, within your year, you'll get a sisters check of your organisation, where we'll come out to your site to conduct a sisters check audit to determine your viability moving into the future. This is in particular, it's going to be more towards the end of your package. once we've got your registration up and going. Your Ruby package includes all of the above plus 2 assessment validation sessions plus 2 face-to-face consultation days or sessions with or a session with our RTO accountant. The Diamond package includes all of the above, but instead of 2 face-to-face consultation days, you'll get 10 additional face-to-face consultation days on your premises, or you'll get 8 face-to-face consultation plus 1 session with the RTO accountant. As part of the business planning and financial viability stage, you'll get a strategic business plan template and as well as a video guiding you on how to complete that business plan. If you have a Ruby or Diamond package, you might want to use one of your consultation days to assist you with writing your business plan. You'll get a meeting with our accountant to review your financial viability application, and this could be just via Skype or over the phone, where we finalise all your documentation prior to getting it signed off and submitting your application to ASQA. 2, if you are doing Ruby or Diamond package, so Ruby you could swap 2 days out, or Diamond you could swap 2 days face-to-face consultation for a day with our accountant. Preparation of your application is to be submitted to ASQA. We'll assist you with that, and ongoing training and support on how to write a business plan. The Ruby and Diamond clients get access to 1 day's consultation for writing their business plan. Remember? So next stage is the training and assessment strategy. So there's research of the training products requirements is what we'll do. We'll also assist you with industry consultation, and we have a process for conducting industry consultation, which includes an industry survey. Meeting the training product requirements, also looking at the resources and equipment that you need to have in place in order to write your training and assessment strategy. You'll get assistance with selecting the right resources to meet the requirements of the training products. Also a staff matrix for each of your trainers and assessors. We'll assist you with the writing of the staff matrix and identifying whether your trainers and assessors are suitable and will meet the requirements of the legislation. We'll also draft you a delivery and assessment plan and then guide you on the process of writing your delivery and assessment plan. And the next stage is we'll write you an assessment validation schedule, which is one of the requirements of the legislation, is that you need to have a schedule in place. We'll customise a course flyer for each training product that you wish to have on your scope of registration. As part of the KickStart package, you'll get a range of professional development. These include workshops and webinars, which are delivered by me, and they include RTO compliance, CRICOS compliance, and assessment validation. Part of the self-assessment requirements is we'll conduct an internal audit of your preparedness for submission to ASQA, and this will include a final review of all of your training and assessment strategies, trainers' files, assessment tools, resources and equipment. On the day of the self-assessment, we'll complete and sign off your self-assessment report to ASQA, and you'll be provided with guidance and an action plan on what you may need to rectify to ensure compliance before audit. We'll then process your submission to ASQAnet, where we finalise all of your documentation to be submitted and upload to ASQAnet. This includes your strategic business plan, financial viability documentation, fit and proper person forms, CEO stack deck, also your self-assessment, training and assessment strategies, and your staff matrix. For the ASQA audit, a Vivacity expert will be by your side at your ASQA audit. You'll also get included an ASQA folder, audit folder, with all of the documentation prepared for your audit. We'll take your notes at audit and identify opportunities for improvement. Time allowing, we'll also fix documents whilst at audit. We'll coach you throughout the day of your audit and provide you with guidance on how to answer the auditor questions. Here is a snapshot of some of our clients that we've worked with in the past. And here is an example of one of the clients that we worked with this year. So this is Wiseman & Co. He was a restaurant owner who wanted to offer commercial cookery training. We assisted with his CRICOS and vet registration, and he gained his registration within 6 months. So that process included us preparing the application for submission and gaining his registration. This is that project management company that I was telling you about, where they were delivering non-accredited training in project management, and then were able to get their registration within 3 months so that they could deliver nationally recognised qualifications, which was the requirement of one of their clients. Another client of ours, this is a testimonial from Aston College. So Hameen provided this testimonial, which is also on our website. Angela and her team are proactive and on top of things. I would recommend Vivacity in a heartbeat to anyone looking at compliance, even help with anything to do with running an RTO, as the vast knowledge of the team is impressive. This is Memento Hospitality. Angela and the Vivacity team helped us get our RTO registration with ASQA, which we are so excited about. Her knowledge, experience and understanding of the process, regulations and legislation were invaluable, and honestly, we couldn't have done it without her. We would recommend her to anyone in a heartbeat. We look forward to launching our RTO and hope to work with Angela and Vivacity again into the future. Memento have been working with us for since they gained their registration. We've done a number of additions to scope, and we've also conducted a site audit of their organisation. So you may be thinking now, but what if? I'm too busy. It just sounds way too hard. I don't think I can do this. I'm just feeling overwhelmed. I don't really have the money to do this right now. I think I can do this on my own. I'm not ready. I need to wait till I know more. I feel I need to put this off, or I might need more information. These are all excuses, because we can get you started straight away. Why wait another 3 years to gain your registration when we can work with you as the experts on your side applying for your organisation? What we see a registration is an investment that you are investing into a business that is worthy. At the moment, a new RTO is worth $150,000 a year, $150,000 to purchase. You'll have the ability to access government funding. When I sold my RTO in 2009, I sold it for over $500,000. So it is a really good investment. You'll get access to the international market and have an opportunity to expand your business. Would you rather have a team of experts on your side with over 20 years of experience at over 200 successful ASQA audits sitting next to you at audit? If you did this on your own, you could be looking at a salary for an RTO manager at around $120,000 to $200,000 a year. It could take you up to 3 years to gain your registration, and you could go through that whole process and put a risk of your organisation being non-compliant and having to spend more time and money to resubmit your application. You could lose valuable time and money and cause more stress due to not knowing or hiring the wrong people to assist you throughout this process. So what do we do that is different? We are by your side at your ASQA audit. We include all of the professional development through monthly webinars and 2 to 3 days face-to-face training in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. We include all of the documentation that have been through over 200 ASQA audits around Australia. We include the completion of your financial viability kit, and that includes a certified practicing accountant to sign off on your financial viability kit, and this is included in the package. Our team has experience with the RTO and CRICOS industry with over 20 years of experience in this industry, and this includes working within the industry as well as being auditors. We have connections with resource providers and suppliers for training and assessment tools and materials and equipment and training facilities all around Australia where we can assist you. What other consultants will offer you is a lot of the times we have found that people have come to us is they've used a consultant where the fees that they outlined for the initial startup of their RTO was not the full fees. We are clear and transparent about all of the fees that you'll be required to pay within your quote. We do not add additional fees. We make it clear that we don't include assessment tools as part of our process, but we will guide you on where to buy those assessment tools. There's plenty of great providers out there that we can recommend. We do not add another fee for your business plan, another fee for your financial viability. We don't add fees as you go. And what we've heard has happened in the industry is there are people that you'll hire. They say they're much cheaper, but they're cheaper for a reason, because there's additional fees on top, or they really don't understand what they're doing. You need to have the experts by your side where we're clear and transparent. One of our values that we ask you to agree to within our terms and conditions is a value that we work with day in, day out within our organisation, and that is to operate ethically. One of our requirements is we will always operate ethically with you, and we'll be clear and transparent throughout the whole process. We know what we're doing. We've been doing it well for a very long time. We're very experienced at what we do, and I am very passionate about what we do. So if you need to know any further information, please give Dave a call for a quote, or you may ask him any further questions about our packages and how we can assist you. You can call him on 1300 729 455. He won't be available until tomorrow at 8:30 a.m., but you can give a call tomorrow, or you can email him right now, dave@vivacitycoaching.com.au, or you can go to our website for more information. For anybody who wasn't able to see this whole webinar today, it has been recorded, and we will be emailing you a link to the recording of the webinar within the next couple of days. So you will get access to that. You can share the webinar with anybody, any other directors or anybody else on your team, or anybody else who may be interested in setting up as an RTO or CRICOS provider. There is no fee for you to do that. We're quite happy for you to share our video and learn more about what you need to know with registering as an RTO. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to email Dave, and Dave will get back to you to answer any of those questions. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope you found it valuable and that we're able to answer the questions that you may have had. We didn't actually have any questions throughout today's session, so I obviously must have covered everything off within the webinar that you needed to know. But thank you very much for attending today's webinar, and I look forward to working with you very soon. Thank you.